So there's too much fuel in the car. Cock up on my behalf for not having it low enough. However, even if you change the pump on these, it has to be below a third or even down to the yellow light before it's comfortable, in my opinion, to access the tank. Sitting down flat, of course. We're up on stands, as you know, because we're doing the trying to do the rubber link from the fill tube. It's not an easy job on an all-wheel drive, it looks like. This is a little piece of wire I've made up here with a switch. Why? Because we need to get rid of the fuel, and there's no force on fuel pump in Vida that I can find. You can click the relay, but that doesn't drive the pump. You actually need to force the motor here. This is the controller, which is on Volvo called a PEM, P-E-M. On the early, my old one, this, which I've actually relocated now to inside, actually lives outside. And if I remember rightly, where does it live? It lives, it's obviously underneath here somewhere if I remember rightly, but on the older car anyway. Volvo sell a different loom wiring section for it to relocate it inside the car. I didn't have to use that, just pulled it through the rubber grommet and it's inside then the bay. This is the subwoofer module sub. If you've never seen it, it's all my tool weights on top. I'll free it up later, but that's what that thing is there. This is a facelift car, so the PEM lives inside the spare wheel cavity, and it's actually velcroed to the inner sidewall down there inside. So what's happening here? This then is I think it's a frequency to voltage amplifier, someone correct me if you can, and you have the 5 wires, which again is a power supply, ground, power supply positive, where my finger is at the end here, the white black is the pump ground and the white is the pump positive. The black is the body ground and the blue is the positive. There we go then. So the yellow is the signal from the ECU. I think it's in frequency, which then gets converted to voltage on this amplifier, PEM, which then in turn drives the white and the white-black wires for the actual pump. So to run the pump heavily to empty the tank, which I need to do, all we've got to do then really is give plus and minus battery voltage to the pump itself. Inside, well, where this wire is going to, this is from the controller obviously, but this wire eventually ends up at the pump underneath the back seat and everything else, which saves you having to uncover the pump housing cover plate and expose the little gasket protecting you from outside and stuff like that. Right, yeah, okay, so what have I done here then? So simply put, here's positive, which is the brown, and here's negative, which is in case my blue. It's not on the battery yet for safety. It's a 3-core multi-core here, you use whatever you like, and it's only 0.5, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be good enough. I'm going up here to a pair of rocker switches which I've non-graciously taped insulated, but let's have a quick look. I had this used for something else in the past. So we've commoned up the entire middle row, and then I'm coming off the what looks like the top right pin. So some of you have never even used a rocker switch. Basically the up handle can be just in 2 positions, or it can be center place like this one here. Sometimes they can have a upper position which is just like a push to make, it spring loads back to center, and sometimes they have a and the other side then would be a hard push position, and then sometimes you end up with one like this which is 3 position here, and you can lock it in the top 2, the upper or lower and center. If it's in the center, it's off, but if the rocket portion is up, you're then contacting these lower two terminals. If you then put the rocket down, you're contacting the middle and the top, but essentially the middle is your common, and then whatever place the switch up or down will then put current towards the other pin. So in this case we're going to make white and brown connect together when we push that terminal, when we push the tongue down on the switch. In this case, bit of tape just to stop it shorting out on the body, because that's positive. Right, so yeah, really, obviously I'm going to drive through the brown's through the switch, turns into white after it's turned on. White goes into the white, which is the pump positive, and then the green's the return negative, and the routine goes down to the black pin. So that should be the power. I've had a brief listen to it, just tabbed it. It won't come up on camera, so but I heard it churn just a little bit there. So yeah, that's been left for safety. These cable ties, I think I got them from Lidl, and they come in packs of 50s or 100, and they're really useful for everything, because you can release them and you can build them up into multiple things, obviously, as you know cable ties do, but these are great because you can just reverse them and they last forever. They're quite a nice material, it's not a brittle. Yeah, going for years. Get some of them. Meanwhile, the car, we are at a point where I got to yesterday, and the subframe is down that far, you can see from the body, and the back is down that far, you can see from the body. The wheel guard, inner wheel guard, is off the car, and what you can see is the filler pipe here. The filler pipe has a metal ring, and that ring secures the rubber into the car body there. So this is currently loose at the moment. There's 3 pipes on this filler thing that's quite elaborate. This is a breather. The other, I can't work out what this, someone will tell me, I'm sure, what that actually does, that thing. Looks like an exhaust silencer almost, but it's obviously not. But yeah, that other one is coming from the drip tray portion of the the filler opening mouth, where you drip the tap in. So that also then ends up at the tank as well. It's tight, it's awfully tight, it's in there. And being the four-wheel drive, I'm sure it's tighter here, although someone I've read who had an XC70, it should be the same back end, I think. Or is it? Yeah, I'll come back to you about that. I'll look at the drawing. Anyway, access is very limited and it's in there. But first we've got to get the fuel out. So again, underneath here is the bracket that the subframe is screwed through. The bracket also is screwed to the car there, so you have to take those 2 out and then let it drop down by loosening that main screw and the other one that I've shown you over there. Also screwed to the bracket is another bracket, which is the fuel filter bracket. There's a tang thing there where my thumb is, which locates into the bracket there, and then there's the screw thread, the round part to the exclamation mark shape, really, there. So the pump is living free, sorry, the filter's living free right here. You'll notice there's a Schrader valve here, and that's reminded me, oh, there's the valve cap there. So that's factory, and that's for you to drop the pressure, fuel pressure out. There's actually a similar one on the fuel rail. We'll look at that in a sec. Let's look at it now while we're here. Some of my engine covers are off because it keeps some misfiring, and it coils, they're all new, God knows, at the moment. What are we looking at? Okay, yeah, fuel rail. These cars don't have a return line, they are pressure on demand, and the sensor is there, and then the line in is just below there. You can see the metal pipe coming in. This is another difference on the facelift. On the earlier fuel rail, you don't have this locking arrangement. You are simply screwing the rail into the O-rings, and somehow that holds the pipe into an O-ring which never leaks on the old one. But this, the facelift has a plastic clip. It's hard to see this shit. Has a plastic clip there, and it grips the pipe far better than the original style. Yeah, as I said, here's the pressure relief on the fuel rail end, but obviously check that out, it's got fluid there, and I reckon that's because it's fuel. We'll come back to that, that's interesting and new. But yeah, this is somewhere you wouldn't want to relieve the pressure if the engine's hot. While we're here, other differences for the facelift. Any screws on the early that are 10mm are now pretty much 8 on the later, and I think it's a Ford-ism. The early was very light Ford, and the fuse box on the early is a lot longer. It's here and bigger, and it's a different layout completely. And I'm looking for one now in here for Moco. It's a Ford Motor Company, obviously. Yeah, so the early one doesn't have any Ford Motor Company parts on it, and the later one, there's not many. The airbox is the same. The gearbox on this one is a TF80 6-speed, so that's different to my 5 AW51, I think it's called, in the old one. Turbo is the same. No, it's not, I tell a lie. It's the same basic model, but the difference is on the later is the air outlet. On the early, it goes down to a V-band connection with a hard, that's another thing, with a hard crossover pipe. So the boost pipe on the early is aluminium. This is plastic, and it's obviously a rubber connection there, which is the same as the T5, whereas the first R was a V-band and different. So yeah, this is Ali on the early. Bottles and everything are the same. The ECU is different. It's a different model ECU. Same brake, servo, and master. It's a different ECU. The whole CAN system on a later is double the speed. I think it's 500k from 250, and they are not compatible with each other. They have completely different wiring systems, these cars, and yeah, the ECU and CAN system, etc, and the SEM or whatnot is going to be different and not compatible. So early and late electronics, a lot of it aren't compatible, but the PEM, while we're back here, is the same. That's normal. The pump is different early late. The late, I've got an early one right this second to show you. This is the late, and the connector, electrical connector, is different, because on the early, the other end, which is this end here, there is another connector on the other end of the early, which it does, is it for the other pump? So on the early, there's less pins on this connector here than the later. So the pumps are not the same either. Obviously the pump motors will be the same, I'm sure. PCB system was the same, if I remember rightly. apparently the prop shaft is different. The rear end, the brakes are the same, suspension is the same. Body kit is different. So on the early, well, let's just check it out now. Here's my hand on the painted back bumper, and then you've also got this trim piece at the top, but essentially the bumper is a lot more wraparound, and the whole kit is body coloured. The front I don't think differs at all from the old, but the rear definitely does. The rear lights are transparent lensed on the facelift. Here's the rear bumper, and the early is my hand. So half of it is plastic bumper case, and there's basically black trim down the sides. That's my own camera and reversing sensors added later, and it's a tow bar cover. So now the job is to disconnect the output of the filter just there, plumb in my little rubber piece, and then fill up successive containers with the switch. So let's come back to that in a minute.